Hey, Hawkeye fan. What are you smiling for? This is Chad Leistikow of the Des Moines Register, Tyler Tachman of the Des Moines Register. Tyler beaming as he heads into the third year of covering Hawkeye football with me here at the Des Moines Register at Hawks Central. We appreciate you guys joining us on our Tuesday weekly staple in the football season. These are the YouTube pods. Tyler, why the grin on your face this afternoon?
No, just some of my favorite parts of these podcasts are the few seconds of when we're waiting for the stream to officially start, and then when we end and we're waiting for it to officially end. So
There you go.
I was just grinning at that.
Well, I'm glad you're happy. You got your first flag football game on Thursday, I hear. We're gonna
Yes,
have to
yes.
break down have you broken down the film yet of your first opponent or
Not yet, but that I just will say that I take responsibility for any pitfalls that our team has. I'm just gonna go ahead and get out front of that. So
accountability? All right.
yeah, so any wrongdoings fall on me. I'm not even the head coach, but I'll go ahead and take responsibility for that. And I just don't want many penalties. Like just keep it clean, not too sloppy. Week one, low expectation, just like Iowa football. You know, you're
All
probably
right.
gonna expect a little bit of maybe a little bit of sloppiness. So just trying to keep hold of the ball, not too many turnovers, not too many penalties. I think we'll be all good.
Well, it's a perfect segue into
You
our
like that. You
as
like
we
that, right?
wait. Yeah, exactly. Well
Yeah,
done, man. You're a pro here in year three.
man.
As we wait for people to kind of filter in here on YouTube, for those that are new to it, a lot of times, well, most Tuesdays, unless it's like a big deal going on, we'll hit like three topics for about 10 minutes each. As you guys know, we have our Wednesday show on KXNO in Des Moines. That kind of helps us preview the upcoming opponent and kind of look forward to the game. But what we like to do on Tuesday is sort of share with you what we learned at the news conference with the players, and then Kirk Ferentz, which happens every Tuesday during the football season. And so we try to do that with three topics. And so our first topic, that obviously it was the number one thing I wrote about today. It was the number one thing on my mind coming in. Was about the quarterback position. We've talked about Mark Gronowski all off season. How ready would he be for the opener? And we're now here. I mean, we're a couple games. They got one practice left before the game. I mean, Wednesday practice, then it's an off day, then it's like final prep on Friday. Go to the hotel. Game on Saturday against Albany. Um, I just sense, Tyler, that there's just a lot of like talk. No matter when Ferentz is interviewed or Lester is interviewed, Gronowski's interviewed, it just sounds like they're couching expectations just a little bit to me. And I'm not saying that's worrisome, but I just feel like it's notable that they just are trying to temper expectations for what he can do out of the gate.
To me, the biggest thing is like I think Kirk Ferentz kind of talked about this Tuesday is like just not trying to do too much because you want to eliminate when you think back the only live football we've seen him play in person since getting to Iowa was that open practice and you just don't want to see those like fumbled snaps like the kind of plays where you're just kind of like scratching your head a little bit as to why they're happening. I think that to me is a baseline of like if Mark Gronowski goes the whole day without turning the ball over, I think that's a good sign. And then anything on top of that in terms of throwing for this many yards or a touchdown or running. And why okay, let me back up a little bit. One, ball security, and then above that is staying healthy, probably, right? Because like, I mean, maybe that goes without
True.
saying, but at the same time, like that's been a major issue for Iowa not being able to keep their quarterbacks healthy. So stay healthy, and that's going to be an every game thing for Mark Gronowski, but also just making the simple plays, making the simple throws, taking care of the ball. That's where it's felt like Iowa's just lacked so much the last two seasons, which is like the easy plays, like your average
Right.
quarterback would make, right? And it's so I think seeing Mark Gronowski make those type of simple plays would almost be like a little bit refreshing. You don't necessarily need to see him throw a 60-yard bomb or run for 30-yard touchdown. I think just seeing him make the simple reads and the easy plays, to me that's like the baseline. Anything better, anything more than that would be like a plus. But like game one, he missed the spring. Just get the feet, have his feet under him. and don't make any plays that like you're really scratching your head about.
Well, I wrote about, hey, it just posted. My boss had just posted. So I have my story on Gronowski and 4 other football thoughts just went up if you want to like kind of read that while we're talking, or I can just talk about it and you can read it later. But so I spent a decent amount of time today with Gronowski. You did some other stuff today, doing some other interviews, working on some other things. And so I guess I can speak to what he said about his expectations. And a couple things that stood out to me when talking to Mark were he also kind of reiterated like the footwork in this offense is something I had to learn and something that's been different for me. So that's been a process. And remember, he didn't get live 11 on 11 until July 30th. So it just feels like he's coming along, but it's not like, you know, it's not like a seamless, it's not like it's Patrick Mahomes coming back for his 10th season or whatever. It's like it's going to be they're just saying it's going to be maybe a little choppy, which is kind of reflective of what we saw at Kids Day. But anyway, the two things that he's kind of or the several things that he's focusing on are, as you said, ball security, and that was kind of Ferentz's first answer, and I kind of like rolled my eyes like, oh man, I realize that is like, really important to Iowa football. I'm not discounting that at all because you have to have a good turnover margin at Iowa to be a good team. Totally get that, but let's just not like take let's let him play too at the same time. And I think that's kind of what I would like to see. Just let him go. And I think Tim Lester is of that mindset. And so they both said, don't turn it over. So you can tell that Ferentz has gotten to him on that. That's great. I love that in some ways because that is smart football. But at the same time, Gronowski also said Lester wants 8 to 10 explosive plays per game. Now that was something that I was like, oh yeah, that's a good measuring stick. Can we see 8 to 10 explosive plays on Saturday? So to me, that's a measure of was this a successful day or not? And then the other thing he talked about was just running. He's got the green light to run, which I thought also was reassuring because I think that that's something I don't want to say worried about, but like, will Iowa even let him run? Now, should he run like 17 times against UAlbany? No, he should not. He should probably run like 6 times, maybe 5 or 6. But against Iowa State next week, yeah, run him 12, 15 times if you need to. Go win the game. That's one of his strengths. So I don't know if that answers the question, Tyler, about what would be successful, but I kind of want to see all those things.
The twist in this is that Mark Gronowski at South Dakota State played UAlbany in the FCS playoffs in 2023. So UAlbany is kind of familiar with his game. Like they've seen him up close. So it's not like he's going to come out and totally surprise them. Like they know what his skill set is. They know, and obviously not seeing it in Tim Lester's system, but there is that sense of familiarity where it's not going to be a total shock that he's in a new uniform, but they've seen him before. So that's kind of an interesting twist into it. And the other thing is talking about his running. Like I think maybe maybe we're underestimating what he's able to do with his legs. I feel like that's going to be a real weapon. It's not like he's a dynamic athlete, but he is, I think, probably quicker than people expect for someone his size. And he has the ability to, a 3rd and 7 just to get out of the pocket and maybe use and then lower his shoulder to get beyond the sticks. So I think that's going to be a real weapon for him. Now, you want him, that's where it gets a little dicey because you don't want to put him in situations where he's vulnerable to get hurt. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like almost to a lesser degree of what Iowa dealt with Brendan Sullivan. Like you can't, he's going to try to make plays. Brendan Sullivan was like super aggressive on the ground with trying to run and such. And Iowa can only pull the reins back so much. I feel like Mark Gronowski will have a little bit of that in him just because he's so competitive. I don't think it'll be to the extent that Brendan Sullivan had, but I think that'll be a weapon. And that's where Iowa felt like with Cade McNamara, like that's where it really lacked of just that mobility piece of not necessarily being a dynamic athlete, but just being able, if the pocket breaks down, being able to make a play or at least extend the play, right?
Yeah.
Give the wide receivers time to get open.
Yeah, and Gronowski did say that someone asked him, like, what's been harder, learning the offense or learning the timing with your receivers? Because he's got a lot of receivers. It's not like he's got 2 or 3 guys. It's like 8 guys, that he's got to figure out. And he said the receivers part. I thought that was an interesting answer. I thought it would go the other way with the Shanahan offense, but it is. It's not something I put in my story, so I'm glad I mentioned it here. But yeah, just the whole system is predicated on timing, and so you know if one receiver's timing is slightly different than another, he needs to know that, and they need to know each other. So I thought that was another good thing to point out. I'm going to try to do a better job this year on the YouTube pods of like answering questions that are coming into our feed rather than just like having Dargan send them to me. But here's a good one, I think, that finishes the quarterback conversation for our first topic from Michael Townsend. He says, KF's tendency is not to give meaningful snaps to backup quarterbacks. Do you feel Hank Brown will get important experience? That's a really good question. Maybe I'll answer that in my mailbag this week if somebody asks it in my text group. But what do you? I'll give you the first crack at that, Tyler. Do you think he'll be quick, I guess, to go to Hank Brown on Saturday, or will he, assuming they're up a lot of points, or will he kind of stick with Gronowski for quite a while?
Personally, I would like to see Hank Brown get in there and get that experience. Now, the fine line you have to balance here is that you probably want Mark Gronowski to get a good amount of snaps from the standpoint of just getting back into the rhythm of the game. Of he hasn't played, he didn't participate in the spring, so he's had less time to prepare. Like, let him get out there, and if there's a game that you're going to make mistakes, let it be this one. I know I just talked about making sure that you ball security and such, but like, this is, if there's a game where you want to work through some of those growing pains, this is it. So maybe give Mark Gronowski a little bit of leash to do that. But I don't know if Iowa would give Hank Brown the opportunity, but I'd love to see it. I'd love to see Jeremy Hecklinski as well. I don't know if Kirk Ferentz would go that deep, but if the score warrants it, I'd love to see Hank Brown get a couple of drives and Jeremy Hecklinski get in there just to build some of that experience and to give them a chance in game action to show what they can do.
Yeah. Shout out from old friend, your predecessor, Kennington Smith, is in the chat with a lot of pressure here. You got to show up here for the guy that held your job before. Thanks for watching from Tuscaloosa, Kennington. Appreciate it. I'm sure you've got some thoughts on Hank Brown, former Auburn QB. But, this is the game to do it. And Tim Lester has, he has carte blanche, in most ways with this offense. Now, Ferentz does control those quarterback decisions for the most part. But I am guessing Tim Lester is going to want to see as much of Hank Brown on Saturday as we can. And so that'll be, I'll say Gronowski gets maybe 3/4, and then maybe Hank Brown gets the fourth. Maybe Hecklinski gets in there a tad or something. We'll say that. Okay. Maybe he'll get like 2 or 3 series. But yeah, you want to see him. And I do think this is my just general opinion that Hank Brown has made enough progress where I think maybe they feel more comfortable running Gronowski. It's not like they have nothing behind him. Like, I think they feel pretty good about Hank Brown. So not that you're going to throw Gronowski into the fire, week 1 against Albany, but yeah, use him. Use him for what you got him for. You're paying him a lot of money. Use him to run. I think that's one of his strengths. Topic number 2, Tyler. So we're also doing a new little wrinkle this year that it's more mandated from our bosses, but I don't know. I guess it's kind of fun. Is doing these like 1-minute videos. Like, Tyler did one today out of the press conference, and Tyler's worried if there's no news what we're going to talk about. But he did a good job today. There was news today, somewhat, Tyler, and you talked about left tackle, which we do have a starting left tackle named on Saturday, Tyler. What are your thoughts?
Trevor Lauk, according to Kirk Ferentz, going to get the nod, and it was kind of down to a 2-man race between him and Jack Doechler. But so Kirk Ferentz said, so this is a rundown. Trevor Lauk expected to start, but Jack Doechler also expected to play. So I don't think it's a situation where Iowa goes with one and the other just sits on the bench. So my thoughts on that, I mean, I guess we'll see how it plays out. Like, I mean, this is something we've been talking about for a while because it was like the one kind of major wild card on the offensive line because you expect Cade Pieper to move over to right guard, and then you have both
Mhm.
Steve Jennings, Dunker, and Logan Jones coming back. But at that left tackle spot, it seems like Bryce George, who transferred in from Ferris State, kind of faded into the background a little bit in that competition. And Kirk Ferentz is optimistic that he's going to play a role this season, but it might just take a little bit of time and sort of the Rusty Feth path of when he came from Miami, Ohio in 2023. But Trevor Lauk, I mean, he's the biggest thing I can say about him is so I was just looking at his bio, like he's from Indianapolis, and Iowa's had like good luck finding guys from Indianapolis, a la Jay Higgins, also from the Hoosier State with Deontay Craig as well. But he was a
And
four-star.
Tyler Tashman
Yeah, well,
from
not
Indiana.
originally, but
Right.
sort of, yeah. but but yeah, no, but anyway, so he four-star recruit 2020 in the
Yeah.
2023
No, he was a
recruiting
big
class.
get. Yeah.
Redshirt sophomore hasn't played a lot at Iowa, appeared in just a handful of games last season. So this is going to be his first like really like big time snaps for Iowa.
Yeah, we're actually gonna talk a little bit more about left tackle on our show tomorrow night. But to me, yeah, to me the biggest disappointment here is that Bryce George is not in the mix. And I know they've explained that away. I talked to Bryce George at media day, and he basically said, that he was struggling early on with the speed of the game. Like it's just a lot different than Division II. He won 3 national championships at Ferris State, but it's not been as easy and seamless, for him to just come right in and uh, pick it up. And so the development guys are the guys winning the jobs. It's actually very similar to my Chicago Bears, who drafted a left tackle, both the last 2 years, and yet the same guy that they've not really liked at left tackle is going to win the job. So it's like you bring these guys in, and then the same guy, the guys you've had are sort of the left tackle. So we'll see how it goes. But parents talking about how performance in the games is going to matter, and they're both going to play Saturday. Doetzler and Locke. Doetzler, one of the most improved players on the whole team from January, according to Kirk Ferentz. And so that's notable, too, that they both earned it. Sometimes, Ferentz made the comment, and whether you believe him or not, he said, sometimes they say if you have 2 players at a position, you have none. He doesn't feel that way about left tackle. They like them both. So we'll see. I'm a little bit skeptical about that position. And I think one other little thing on the offensive line, Tyler, that maybe we've just sort of glossed over, and maybe, I don't know, like just assumed Cade Pieper would win the job at right guard, but he won the job at right guard. There was just never a question, it seemed like. I mean, this is a guy that's never started a game. He's a young kid, 2-time hay bale champ, obviously, but just a sophomore, and now he's on that line too. I mean, same age as Locke, and we're not worried about him at all. I don't think Pieper, right?
Wait, I mean, I feel like he just has that little bit more game experience, being
A
like,
little, yeah, but not a ton.
yeah, I don't know, maybe just kind of being that like key reserve last season. But
Yeah.
someone Brent is asking like, who do you expect to be the extra O lineman when necessary, as Pieper was last year? I think that's a good question. I mean, maybe whoever isn't starting at that left tackle spot like could be in the mix. Bryce George, maybe plays that role. And then here's a name that Kirk Ferentz mentioned at Kids Day and that showed up on the 2 deep is a true freshman, Lucas Algier. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But who knows if he's gonna get like meaningful snaps, but I think for him as a true freshman to be on the 2 deeps, that's something worth monitoring at least. Kirk Ferentz said on Tuesday the only true freshman right now they're green lighting is Nathan McNeil, which
Yeah.
to hear his name wasn't surprising because he was someone that's really stood out. It was a little bit interesting to hear no Yosei Epinesa. I mean,
Right.
obviously circumstances can change. I think that might be also a reflection of just like the depth that Iowa has on the defensive line right now, like to me, that could very easily be Iowa's strongest position group on defense. So, but those are a handful of names in terms of offensive line, like who could be those kind of plug and play guys if someone gets hurt. Who could you throw in there? Because that was Tyler Ellsbury and Nick DeYoung. Like they were really valuable last
Right.
season
That's true.
as guys that you could kind of slide into that starting role if someone was hurt. So.
Yeah, that's probably not talked about enough. That when they did have injuries, I mean, Dunker went out for a little bit. Um, when they did have guys that could plug in, like Ellsbury was a really good reserve and went into an NFL camp. And so Kirk Ferentz did say today, can we get 6 or 7 starter level players like they had last year? And I think that's the goal, because right now they probably have for sure 4, and then you're hoping that the 2 left tackles are 5 and 6. And then, who's number 7? Is it Leighton Jones? Is it Michael Mislinski? Is it Lucas Allgaier, as you said? Is it Bryce George? We will see. But Allgaier is the only true freshman on the depth chart. So McNeil did not make the depth chart, which came out Monday. Topic number 3, Tyler, do you want to do – I'll give you the choice here. We can talk about my article on Bo Stevens, which has gotten a ton of great feedback. I think that's worth discussing at some point. We can do that tomorrow too, or not at all. You guys can just read the story too. We can talk about health report, which I think is important because probably some good news there, or wild card, your choice.
Why don't you can talk about your story and then I can go through the health? Is that
okay? Sounds
is
good.
that okay?
Yes, sounds good, because this deals with mental health, and I really appreciated Bo Stevens kind of opening up on Media Day, and it was funny because I sort of apologized to Tyler. We had a plan. You always have a plan going into Media Day, and we were going to divvy up the quarterbacks. And I was supposed to get here, you guys. I was supposed to get Hank Brown and Jeremy Hicklinski, and I got neither of them. But that's because I spent most of the time that day talking to Bo Stevens, and it was a really impactful conversation. It was something that I didn't really know anything about this other than I knew that George Barnett had told me one time he's one of the best stories I've ever had, and I was kind of just fishing around like, what has made you such a good story? Anyway, just talked about his struggles with ADHD, or at least he didn't know he had it until he got to Iowa, and that's why he was had trouble concentrating, has all these incredible physical gifts. Long story short, went through some dark times at Iowa. You can read about some of that. And came out of it after that diagnosis, developed some strategies to help him in life. And it was really the quotes in there just are very emotional. They get me choked up. They got me choked. I was typing it and I was actually like crying, like, because they were that powerful. His parents talking about how he, it's just nice to not think about that he's not, worrying about him this year, that kind of thing. And George Barnett saying he's, one of the most impressive young men he's ever, $1 million off the field type of guy. And he's just kind of gone from being a little bit of a mess in terms of just overwhelmed with certain things, to having strategies in life, to getting the mental health support he needed. And now he's like the smartest offensive lineman on the team. And he's also the most physical blocker on the team. And now he came back for his 5th year because he just loves these guys. He loves this routine so much. It's very important for somebody with ADHD, is developing routine and getting familiar, knowing exactly what's going to come the next day, that type of thing, and having strategies to deal with potential pitfalls. And medication is part of it too, but finding that balance as a high-level Division I athlete, it's really difficult, and especially when you're under the pressure like he was as a redshirt freshman starter back in 2022 when Iowa's line was a total wreck, and Spencer Petras was getting sacked constantly, and it was a tough year for Kirk and Brian Ferentz as well. It was just a rough year for the offense, and the offensive line was kind of the center of it. He was at the center of it. He showed me his tattoo. You can watch that video too, just to how his purpose has changed. Really cool stuff, but the main message I guess I hope people get out of it is, try to find signs. If you sense maybe a loved one maybe experiencing some symptoms of ADHD, it's not too late to get help, and help turn that person's life around. And so, really thankful he shared that story. Really thankful he's in the position he is right now mentally. So mental health to physical health, Tyler.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that, and I would just encourage everyone, not only for loved ones, but just for yourself, just to, evaluate where you're at, and if you feel like you need help, just to prioritize your mental health, because I feel like that's something that definitely isn't talked about enough. So just making sure that you're taking care of yourself mentally, but physically, we talked to Kamari Moulton. He sounds like he missed some time leading up to the season. Sounds like he is back in shape and ready to go. TJ Hall, we talked to him as well, and we talked about this a little off air, but he was like, this is what TJ Hall said. He said he feels like
Yeah,
he's back to normal, and then he added in pretty much.
pretty
So
much. Yeah.
so he's like, it seems like he's close to being 100%, if
Mm-hmm.
not 100%. So that's obviously a good sign for Iowa's cornerback situation with him being a veteran. Whether he's at 100% or not, I'm not exactly sure. But and then Jeremiah Pittman, defensive lineman, who kind of had an extended recovery. He's been back now for, Kirk Ferentz said, about a week and a half, and that's just another depth piece in that defensive line. It just feels like that's just a really deep room. He's never started a game at Iowa, but he's played some. He was a rotational piece last season, played in every single game. So that's just another part of that room that you can kind of add into the fold. So it seems like health wise, entering game one, Iowa is in a pretty good spot. Maybe this season Iowa's health luck kind of turns around, and they're able to stay healthier than they have been the last couple of years at some of those key positions like quarterback. So maybe water will kind of find its level this season, but at least right now, entering game one, it feels like overall I was in a pretty good spot health-wise.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, I remember, I feel like the last, uh, I don't know how many years, there's like hell, injuries have been such a major storyline. I just remember so many guys out on Kids Day one year. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but it's just always a story. But there's really like no, like when we get the injury report on Saturday, Tyler, like I don't know who's going to be on there. I mean, there might be. I know Josh Janowski, I think, had a surgery, but like nobody that was expected to play, I don't think is going to be on there. Can you think of anybody that would be on the injury report Saturday that even questionable at this
Yeah.
point? I really
I mean,
can't, unless
I,
it's a surprise between now and then.
yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing is like we understand it's football and injuries are gonna happen, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
but it just feels like it's happened at like some really really critical position. Like quarterback has just not been able
Hmm.
to stay healthy.
Cooper
Uh,
DeJean.
yeah,
I
it's
know that was
happened.
later in the year, but still, Luke Lachey, Eric Hall. I mean, let's go
Yeah,
down the list.
yeah.
Injuries have been a major story for this team the last several years.
Especially, it feels like especially on the offensive side, like
Hmm.
defense has been able to and mostly stay healthy. Like me outside of Cooper DeJean, but it feels like it's really held back the offense at quarterback in particular. But I understand injuries are part of the game, but like if Iowa can, there's a few positions it feels like Iowa can kind of maybe endure them this
Hmm.
season, and then some like cash and safety that Iowa probably wants to keep Zach Lutmer, Cohen Entringer, and Xavier Wampa like as healthy as possible for the entire season.
Yeah, absolutely. Good health. You can't ask for anything more, really. If you're a Hawkeye fan going into the season, you've got a healthy roster, a much healthier quarterback situation. We're not saying everything is solved with Mark Gronowski, as we said at the top of the show, but you feel really good about the potential that he has, to make first downs, to make plays. We're going to talk more about previewing the Albany game. Maybe I wanted to talk more about Sam Phillips today, but we'll save him for tomorrow because that I feel like is a little bit of a simmering story that we might be able to see on Saturday. You can check out my column actually if you want to catch a little preview of that. But he's a name that's kind of rising, so it'll be fun. It's fun to be in a game week with you, Tyler. I'm looking forward to night game vibes on Saturday. McKenna Velichko also going to be there in the house on Saturday. Big women's basketball recruit. They're going to try to land her. So really exciting night ahead on Saturday.
Iowa basketball workouts back
Oh,
underway.
shirts and skins? No, I'm just kidding.
I, no,
That was all. Yes, about before your time when they used to do shirts and skins
you mean
scrimmages before
you
football
mean
games.
you mean Sturtson skins?
Look at
That
you.
That was bad.
Nice.
That was bad.
Yeah.
No, but no, they resumed on Monday. So Ben McCollum and company back getting ready for the season.
All right. Yeah, it's going to be a fun year of Iowa athletics for sure. Make sure to check. We're going to be here every Tuesday, you guys. Unless one of my kids has a cross country meet, then maybe Dargan will fill in. So for Tyler Tachman, I'm Chad Leistikow. We'll talk to you on Hawks Central on Wednesday. And don't forget, we got our post game podcast after every Iowa football game. We'll probably be doing that around midnight, maybe a little before this coming Saturday. Hopefully, a little before, actually. So make sure to check that out as well on our YouTube Hawk Central page. Anyway, talk